Hello, and welcome to the next edition of Peter's Perspective. In this edition, we will be examining how companies have shifted how they purchase and what they're purchasing for services. And by services, I'm referring to IT and business process services. Now, in the model that most companies are currently in and have been over the last 20 years, they have been looking at services. They've decomposed their services into components, labor, equipment, etc. And then they have looked to get the lowest priced, highest quality components possible. And so their procurement and management have been focused on components and ensuring they get quality, low cost components. Now, digital transformation and the operating models that accompany that are radically changing this situation. Firms still want to understand the components and the cost of those components, and they want a fair price for that. But now they're interested in the operating model. Now, the reason they're interested in changing to a different digital operating model is these operating models are far more flexible, far more agile, and they operate at a dramatically lower cost to serve than the traditional models we're coming out of, the talent factory models and process driven models that define the market today. So we have a keen interest to understand and ensure we build and maintain these new operating models. Now, the third dimension is that these new operating models also strengthen the relationship to business between the cost to serve or the service and business value. Now, this business value can take many forms. It could be customer experience, it could be some form of increased competition or market share, it could be many other aspects. Now, not all services have a direct link to business value, but many of them do, and particularly as we look into these digital transformation platform-oriented operating models, they have a much stronger relationship. They enable better business value. They serve the business better. So as we move forward, companies must understand the business value. The relationship, is it enabled? How do we get more business value? How do we move forward on that dimension? So how do I measure it and how do I manage it to get more of it? At the same time, we need to understand the operating model. How do we build and manage a better operating model, a more agile, lower cost to serve operating model? And again, the complication here is often in these new operating models, we are using different components, and those components are more expensive often than the old labor arbitrage talent factory model that we're moving out of. So we need to understand all three dimensions: business value, operating model cost to serve, and component cost. A mistake that many firms are making right now is they're conflating these three together, and it makes it very difficult when you do that to really understand what's going on. It has been our experience in research which says separate them. Look at the analysis and have a clear view of how you manage for business value, a different analysis of how you define and manage for the operating model, and a separate analysis on the components. You can still handle they're related, but it's much easier to understand how to buy and to manage when you separate these components. I hope this is helpful, and I look forward to talking to you next week on our next edition of Peter's Perspectives.